of a person. So that's the.
I signed that one.
Yeah,
James.
that was the end of June.
Chairperson.
So,
Okay, just put ITS, that's not all, no.
Pardon?
Then ITS. Are you sure?
I don't care.
Okay.
Just put chairperson, and then it needs to be sent, email it to me. Okay, so I can get it on to the Oh. Yeah, good man. Good to see you. Agenda means a long meeting, everybody knows that.
We'll go ahead and get started. Everyone stand. Mr. Dent, please do prayer, please.
Father in heaven, once more again, we're here thanking you for life, health, strength. Come asking your blessing upon us tonight as we try to make a decision what's best for all our citizens. Short, Lord, what we're saying, we pray for the condition of this world, this country, and this county, and city, and state. We thank you now for what you're going to do. You've blessed us so far. And we love you now, Father, for your goodness and your mercy. These blessings and all other blessings we ask right now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to our meeting this Tuesday, July the 18th, 2023, 6 p.m. We have a conference line set up. The number is 1-917-900-1022. The access code is 32347#. This is not a toll-free number, and you may be subject to long distance charges according to your long distance plan. When the chairperson opens the meeting for public comment, please follow the below instructions. If you wish to speak, please dial *5. The moderator will unmute your line when it's your turn to speak and notify you by announcing the last 4 digits of your telephone number. Please announce your name and address, and you will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes. Any person wishing to address the board regarding an agenda item will be given 3 minutes for comment. A commenter may only speak 1 time for each agenda item. All right. That said, we're doing number 3. Do I have an approval of the agenda?
I move.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving down to consent items. Everyone had a chance to look over your consent items. Any questions, discussions? Have a motion to approve by consent? Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve by consent items, all in favor? Moving down to number 7, audit presentation fiscal year 2021-2022. Caleb Perla, CPA, to appear to present the county's audit report for fiscal year 21-22, agendaed by Danielle Welch, County Finance Director.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Once again, my name is Caleb Perla. I'm one of the partners at Howland Jones CPA. We've been doing your audit for many years now. And as usual, it's a pleasure working on your audit. Okay, so we're going to start with this PowerPoint presentation. It gives a summary of what is in your financial statements. First, we have our audit opinion. It states that on pages 8 to 10, that we conducted a full financial audit of the county, which includes the Board of County Commissioners and the 5 constitutional officers. The audit was conducted in accordance with applicable auditing standards, which include financial auditing standards, government auditing standards, federal single audit standards, and state single audit standards. The objective of our audit is to express an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. The county has this highest level of assurance from this audit, which is a good reflection of the quality of the financial records and internal control procedures of the Board of County Commissioners and the constitutional officers. The management discussion and analysis report on pages 11 and 17 is a section that contains certain required broad overview information on the county. Due to the fact that it is derived from the financial statements, in the interest of time, I request that you read this section on your own, and I'll go directly to the pertinent financial statements themselves. On page 22 is the governmental funds balance sheet. The county maintains 41 governmental funds, which include 9 major funds, which are listed separately on this statement, and 32 non-major funds, which are shown separately on pages 89 to 90 of this report, and it's shown as a total column as well and summarized on this page. The balance sheet is essentially a snapshot of the financial overview of the county as of before the year ended September 30th, 2022. So it starts October 1st, 2021. A highlight of this financial statement is as follows. We have summarized here general fund, which had total assets of $16,202,000. Total liabilities of $576,000. The net of those two together is $15,625,000 in fund balance. This is essentially like the net worth of the county at year end. This is broken up into several components. We have non-spendable amounts, which can't be spent because it's like prepaid expenses, for example, if they've already been spent for future periods. Restricted assets, which might be external factors such as state guidelines or grant restrictions. We have assigned amounts, which is amounts that by the county commissioners have set aside for certain purposes legally to be spent for future periods. Those amounts for the county as a whole are $268,000 for non-spendable amounts, $10,807,000 for restricted amounts, $8,103,000 for assigned amounts, and $14,437,000 for unassigned balances. Those unassigned balances represent amounts that can be spent to fund ongoing operations in the future. This represents approximately 49.1% of your operating expenditures for your governmental funds, which is equivalent to about 5.9 months of operating expenses. So you have a pretty decent reserve to fund ongoing operations if anything were to happen and there any kind of downturn in revenues. Total assets for the governmental funds in total were $36,629,000, and total liabilities were $3,013,000. Let's go to the next slide. Here we have our governmental fund statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. This is kind of like a profit and loss for your governmental funds. This is presented on the modified accrual basis of accounting, so it's kind of like on a budgetary basis, what they should budget on. So it doesn't have certain long-term assets and liabilities and the variances in those in this. The total revenues for general fund were $17,505,000. We had expenditures and transfers of $14,296,000 going out, which brought our net change in fund balance, basically like your profit for the year, to $3,209,000. This, as a percentage of revenues, was 16%. So it's like your profit margin, essentially, on your revenues for general fund. The net change in fund balance in the prior year was $1,230,000. So you had about a $2 million increase in profitability from the prior year. As a percentage of revenues in the prior year, it was 7.47%, which was compared to 16% this year. We had total capital outlays for your general fund of $428,000, and the prior year was $686,000. You'll see between the two, both general and total governmental funds, there was more expended in the prior year for capital assets because of several road paving grants that were going on, and that those projects expended a lot of money. Total governmental funds, we have revenues of $34,115,000. Expenditures and transfers were $29,410,000, and net change in fund balance, which is like your profit, was $4,704,000. This represents about 13% of your total revenues, the profit margin there. The prior year net change in fund balance was $4,084,000, which represents approximately a $620,000 increase over the prior year. Total capital outlays were $2,985,000 versus $6,898,000. Now we're completed with the governmental funds. Now we're going to talk about the proprietary funds. They are utilized for the county's operations, which are intended to fully operate from user charges. The enterprise funds utilize business accounting principles because essentially they operate like a business. You have user charges coming in and expenses for those, kind of like a for-profit business. The county has one enterprise fund, and that is the airport fund. So the next slide. This is the proprietary fund statement of net position, which is on page 25 of the report. The statement of net position is the equivalent of the balance sheet that we saw for the governmental funds and provides a snapshot visual overview of those funds as of September 30th, 2022. The financial highlights are as follows. We had total assets of $267,000, total liabilities of $18,000. The net of those two is $248,000 in net position, or essentially like your net worth for that fund for the year. That's split up into two main components. The first one is the amount that's invested in capital assets, which is $89,000, and the amount that's unrestricted, it can be used to fund ongoing operations of $159,000. The unrestricted net position as a percentage of total expenses is 53.4%, which is a little over half a year's of operating expenditures. The statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in net position on page 26 of the report, once again, provides essentially a snapshot of the profit or loss for the Airport Enterprise Fund for the year. You have your operating revenues of $311,000 and operating expenses of $298,000. This brings your operating income for the year to $12,000. On the cash flow statement, we had beginning cash of $158,000. And it was slightly decreased by about $2,800 to $156,000 as of year end. So essentially break even on cash flow for the year. The next is our capital assets, which you can see on page 46 in the notes to the financial statements. This is broken down in for the governmental activities and business type activities. Like I just talked about, the governmental activities is the general fund and all the other governmental funds. The business type activities would represent that airport fund. The total of all assets for the governmental activity was $185,000, and approximately $105,000 of this was used up over time. So we estimate the useful life of your assets and reduce that value over time. And so the net value of those assets was about $80 million. The percent that it's depreciated is about 56%, which shows that you're replacing your assets approximately as they're being used up, 50% halfway used up. Business type activities, we had total equipment of 160,000. 70,000 of this was used up according to our estimated useful lives. Total net asset was 89,000, which is about 44% used up. Let's move on to the next page. Next slide. We have a capital assets note, a fixed asset, a debt management note on page 51 for governmental debt. During the year, the total long-term debt increased by $10,904,000. This was primarily a result of a $10,770,000 increase in the FRS pension liability. The following schedule shows the balances of the county's governmental long-term debt as of year-end. Basically, that long-term liability represents the deficit of the state's FRS plan. You have to report a portion of that on your financial statements. Even though that's a large number and it can swing wildly from year to year based on actuarial assumptions, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have to pay those funds out next year. Kind of like an estimate long-term, over this pension plan over many, many years. So it's not a significant operating expense you're going to have next year or anything like that. Total capital leases on your schedule were $349,000. We had compensated absences, which is like sick and vacation leave for employees, of $932,000. And then we have your proportionate share of that net pension liability of $16,560,000, bringing total long-term liabilities to $17,842,000. Next slide. We have our single audit and compliance section, and this is on page 98 and 99 of the report. Audit procedures required by government auditing standards go beyond financial issues and include internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and related matters. This report contains no findings or question costs related to these procedures. We have more information on our federal and state single audits on page 100 and 101. We have our federal and state single audit requirements, which require grants where you expended over $750,000 to have this single audit. We pick major programs based on certain thresholds for that, and we test those programs for compliance. The programs that were selected for testing were the nationally significant freight and highway projects, the resource and ecosystem sustainability and tourist and revive economics in Gulf Coast states. We have the small county outreach program, the aviation grant program, the small county solid waste grant, and the recreation development assistance grant program. These are all major programs that we did extensive testing on as a part of our single audits. The report on these single audits contains no findings or question costs. Next, we have our management letter on pages 105 to 107 of the report. The management letter is required by by Chapter 1055 Rules of the Auditor General and contains any findings and recommendations that were not included in the previous reports, but items which we wish to make the Board of County Commissioners and the officers aware of. In this letter, there were no prior year findings, although there were reportable findings in the current year for the Sheriff's Office. The Board of County Commissioners, clerk, property appraisers, supervisor of elections, and tax collectors did not have any current year findings. The findings primarily, for the Sheriff, was primarily due to a staff person who left, who was not keeping track of bank reconciliations for the inmate welfare and individual depositors' funds, and records just weren't being kept super carefully with that. Next, we have our independent accountants report on page 108. Rules of the Auditor General require us to perform procedures to verify compliance in the following areas. The first one is an investment of public funds, which are required to be spent in certain things in accordance with investment policies. E-911 grant compliance. Third, the clerk's court-related budgetary compliance. And fourth, the clerk's compliance with state court performance standards. We performed the appropriate procedures and had no findings regarding these matters. Do you guys have any questions about Yes, sir.
You said a lot. We haven't had a chance to look at this. This entire package in here. But I want to ask, Wanda and Danielle,
Yes, sir.
have y'all went through this with fine tooth comb?
I have. Yes. I have not reviewed every page, no, sir. I did look over it.
The appearance is that there's a clean audit, that's what I'm bringing down this presentation, and I didn't go through all 236 pages, I've made it through quite a number, but the indications that I saw in the summaries were that weren't being fine.
We just had that one small one about the sheriff's issue in there, but, that's not a material issue for the financials of the county as a whole, so we believe these financial statements are accurately, an accurate representation of the operations of the county for the year. Everything else is good.
I think you need to vote to accept it, right, Gary?
Motion, there's no other discussion, we have a motion to accept. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Public request, Mr. Michael Correa, VFW Commander, to request veterans of Ford and Ward. VFW request.
Good to see y'all again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We, VFW Quest 965, would like to thank you for the opportunity to come speak on behalf of our post here in Taylor County. And if you don't mind, let me give you a little bit of history about our organization. Our organization was chartered our post was chartered in October 1978. And it's been a lot of work to build it back up, and we almost lost its charter in 2017. And me and some other members stepped in, and we brought it back to life. And made it become an asset to Taylor County, because we do a lot for our veterans, and we help the seniors, we help the youth in the community as well. And now we're also the talk of our district and the department, state of Florida, VFW. We have set the standard for them to try to follow. And I think that's pretty awesome, considering we almost got our charter took away. And we also sponsor law enforcement, fire, EMT, paramedic, and lifesaver of the year, along with the teacher of the year. As long as you're certified, we do Western Miles for Patriot Spirit to middle school and high school. We also build, repair ramps, assist with ensuring their homes are safe for them to live in, make sure they've got food to eat, and appliances that work, doors that lock, beds to sleep on. And basically just make sure their housing is safe for them. Our organization itself, it was founded immediately after the Civil War in 1889 to help veterans get compensation and benefits for their injuries and for their retirement. Now, what we are asking for y'all is, our money goes out just as fast as we can get it in. And lately, our fundraising has dropped off because our air conditioning died on us. And we really need some help in getting into air conditioning. The cheapest estimate we've gotten is $20,000, and that includes outside unit, repairing the ductwork, and a split unit inside. That's been the cheapest route we've been able to find. So we're asking if y'all can see it in your budget, assist us, that would be really awesome. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
So you're just requesting some assistance with the AC?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because like I said, as soon as we get our money in, it goes right back out.
Now, the building that you all are in, is who owns the building?
We are on a 5-year lease to buy it.
Which building is that,
It used to be the old Rocky Creek.
the Reguler building?
Yes, sir. When we do bingo out there, we have the schools come in, so the AC went out, and they do tours. Like I said, it's a little miniature museum. You get a chance to come check it out. And 4th of July, we had a water slide out there for the kids, fireworks, hamburgers, hot dogs, sodas, and bottled water that was it. So,
Comments from the board?
In this size purchase, is there any kind of grant funding to help you guys with your facility? I mean, that would be a certain capital expense.
I've tried researching grants. Like I said, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, you old country boy, and I'm just trying to do the best I can for this coast. But it's confusing as to leave. And all the ones I've tried applying for through the VFW, they tell me that we don't meet the criteria. And we've been dealing with that for the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we did that remodel that veterans house for him. And 2 years ago, we had to remodel 80-something-year-old veteran's home for him because his son destroyed it. I mean, it was unlivable on that in the house. So we came out of our pockets, money, because we didn't have all the funds in the VFW. We did the drywall on 2 bedrooms and the hallway to put all new carpeting in there. We had to patch holes in the floor where the son cut holes to get it out of his drugs. You know, and that's kind of put a big strain on us.
How long have they seen it now?
2, 3 months. About 2 months.
How do y'all cool the place today? I mean, how are y'all cooling that place?
We're not. We got some fans, box fans, and a little window AC unit, and it's not doing anything.
What's the, what was that amount again that you were?
It's running right at 20,000,
So,
and we will provide receipts for everything.
well, as you know, I know we're going through budget sessions now, and we had our first meeting yesterday, and
My birthday was yesterday, so y'all can do it as a belated birthday present.
Right, that'd be pretty nice.
that would be nice. So we are going through our budget sessions, and we do have a couple more meetings, so if there's anything, I know that, Mr. Stamps, you may want to elaborate some, but, if there's anything that we're able to assist with and put in this budget to help, then I would definitely will. Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Shred,
You need to come join the post too.
you said you have a lease to own.
Yes.
Okay, so what does the lease say about repairs and providing air conditioning?
That's part of the lease. We are liable for any repairs. That's the only way he would do the lease. And that's the reason we got the price we got on the lease. We pay $800 a month. We have to come up with every month.
But the problem, just, if you purchase air conditioning at $20,000 and then your lease is up,
We just signed the lease.
yeah, but it said for 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. And the lease is up and the, person who owns it decides not to sell it to you, then you spent $20,000 and enrich that person of the
No,
air.
sir, it's stated in the contract that when we started talking about getting the air conditioning fixed, it's stated that if we fix the air conditioning, he changes his mind, we take the air conditioning stuff with us. Same thing with all the other repairs we've done. The handicap ramp, the kitchen supplies, the tables and chairs for inside, that's all on us.
What you gonna do with an air conditioner though?
I actually don't
You know,
know.
I'm just asking, it just, I've never
Well,
heard of.
hopefully, if worst case scenario, we lose our building, we'll put it in the next building. But we are.
Obviously, I would say that, but it's just, sure like to see your lease, you
That's
know?
not a problem, there's a register right there at the house. We'll file.
Y'all understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, it's an improvement to an asset, but
Yeah,
you don't
it's
have
a
any,
fixture.
it's a good guarantee as far as reimbursement. So,
You put It's not like a window unit, it's an air conditioner, it's a fixture, and it goes with the property. But if your agreement says no, then of course, you're bound by the agreement, but you can understand why I asked the question.
Yes, sir, yes, I understand very well.
That's the only question I had with regard to
Unless
that.
y'all just wanna buy the building for us, and then we'll take care of ourselves.
I didn't hear you, sir.
I was making a joke, I said, well, y'all can just buy the building for us, and we'll take care of ourselves.
How much does it cost?
$350. That's why we need the air conditioning fixed, so we can get back on our fundraisers.
How many square feet does the building have, sir?
4 to 5,000.
4 to 5,000?
Yes, sir, and it's on 7 acres with a rental house in the back.
Is the rental house air conditioned?
Yes, it is, and it's occupied. But it's got,
But is that part of your lease?
yes. We
How long- how
got the
long-
whole 7 acres.
Okay, how long is that lease?
His lease a year to year on the house.
Okay.
You're not collecting the lease payments on that house?
Yes, and that's how we're paying our rent. And
And the rent that you're paying, which you said is $800 a month?
yes, and we have to give him.
Well, that's a pretty good deal there. Does that go toward the purchase price?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Let me back it up a little bit.
Okay.
We had a 10-year lease with the first time. Well, somehow, the landlord got with a former member opposed and got him to change the lease to a 1-year lease with an option for renewal for 10 years. Well, my signature wasn't on that. But anyway, we talked to an attorney. We told him we were going to file a civil suit against him and the former member. And next thing I know, the landlord was calling me and says, hey, let me do this and, have to straighten this out. So he gave us, we collected all the rent. You don't step foot on the 7 acres no more. We sent him a check in the mail for $800 a month, and he leaves us alone, period. Because him and they're scared of that lawsuit. But we just wanted our lease fixed. That's all we wanted.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Yes. I don't have anything to say, but if you ever get up a fundraiser to try to raise some funds,
Yes.
please, I'll be willing to help.
Yes, so we tried, like I said, the big thing, for the 4th of July celebration. I mean, we rented a water slide. We went all out, helping people bring their kids and let it cool off in this heat. We barely broke even. And we would have done that if somebody wouldn't help donate towards the water slide. We'd have lost our rear ends. That's another reason we're trying to do a big yard sale this weekend. And a bloody pocket drive. We're trying to do anything we can to help get our funds up. But like I said, as soon as we get them in, they're going right back out to help veterans. And that's our main thing is help veterans. We are going to be doing more fundraising. Thank you.
Constitutional officer and other governmental units, the board to consider approval of bid committee recommendation to award primary debris monitoring services to Witt O'Brien, secondary debris monitoring service to Thompson Consulting Services as attended by Mr. John Loud.
Was that correct?
Okay. All right, Mr. Loud.
Well, if I can, speak on, items 9 and 10. The review committee, which consisted of myself, Mr. Pemberton, and Mr. Warmbold. We reviewed all the proposals, and scored them out, as directed. And, the primary, the Witt O'Brien scored, the best, and the secondary was, Thompson Consulting. As with the debris management being series and secondary being the Crowder Gulf. And once the board approves that, then we'll move directly into drafting the contracts, and we'll get those back to y'all as soon as we can.
Any discussion from the board?
You know, do we have any kind of history with these two groups? I mean, I see the totals and obviously that's all I see from the recommendation.
We did have former contracts with series and Crowder Gulf.
Yes, national history. Yeah, I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll make motion to approve.
I'll second. Before we go to that, let's, this just in case we have hurricanes and things of that nature, disasters.
Yes, sir.
Does it need these folks?
Yes, sir.
It is the county responsibility to have these people on board all the time. It's a statute, is that right?
Yes, sir. Especially, obviously, the biggest thing is whenever we have any kind of disaster happen, we have to have these contracts in place to have reimbursement from FEMA.
So we need to do two separate motions. So, motion to approve debris monitoring. And a second to
Yes.
approve our debris monitoring committee.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Need another second motion?
10, we have discussed the board to consider approval of bid committee recommendation to award primary debris management services to series and secondary debris management services to Crowder Gulf as agended by Mr. Loud. We have a motion to approve.
I move.
A motion and a second to approve debris management. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. County administrator item, county administrator to discuss informational items.
Well, I mean, I can say something if you need me to.
We'll go to number 12, comments and concerns from the public for non-agenda items. Anyone on non-agenda items?
Yes, sir.
Can you step up, state your name and address?
Yes. My name is Brian Johnson. I live at 2200 East Ellison Road. I'm bringing before the committee a issue that's recently occurred. I recognize the issue is due to the excessive rainfall we've had. We are seeing, many of the property owners are seeing issues where water is encroaching on our property from our neighbor's property. This is not natural rainfall upon our properties. This is rainfall that's moving from one section to another. In the last 48 hours, we've got at least 6 homes that are now unable to access your driveways. Some of our driveways are tall enough that we can drive to the high water. We do have some neighbors who will require a boat tonight to get to their house. The general assessment as a non-professional engineer is that there is nowhere for this water to go. The water has found the lowest point. In many cases, water is covering a large percentage. In some cases, water is covering a large percentage of the property landowner, or the landowner's property, up to 90%. There's nowhere for it to go. It must evaporate or it must absorb. I understand that with the amount of rainfall we had, the aquifer has risen, the absorption rates will be low, the evaporation rates will be low. I personally expect to have water standing on my driveway for likely the next month to month and a half. Again, because there is no natural drainage for this water. My property is the low spot. And speaking earlier today with Ms. Pemberton, thank you for your time. She did express that there was a study requested to the Corps of Engineers 3 years ago.
Approximately.
That is underway. My request for action to the committee, to the council, is to provide a status update of when that study would be completed, providing that back to the landowners and the addressees of East Ellison Road. Once that becomes known, once that is published, then we would ask for an opportunity to speak with the council and determine what the next course of action would be to mitigate future flooding. I submit there's currently no place to pump this water. There's no place to dig a ditch for this water. And other than forming a bucket brigade, it's going to be there. If the council has an opportunity to come view our property, please come view our property. We appreciate the action by the council and by the county administrator. I realize this has been going on for some time. This is the first time I've addressed the council. And I do look forward to attending the next meeting, learning more about the actions and what can be done in the steps ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Edwards?
Well, Mr. Chairperson, if it's okay, I can provide that update tonight, as far as where we are in the Army Corps of Engineers study.
Yes, ma'am.
So we expect the existing conditions modeling to be completed sometime in August. So that being said, I would anticipate that you can't hold me to this, but I haven't been provided a final deadline, but I would say maybe sometime December, January, we should have a report. But that's not formal, but that's because it was started in January of 2023, was their first kickoff meeting was January 30th. So I would hope that it could be complete in about a year, hopefully prior to that. But there still needs to be some dialogue between staff and the hydrologists and other team members once the modeling is complete.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be approximately the same timeline. Now, as y'all know, there were multiple areas that were included within the study areas. So it's not just the East Ellison Road for this report we're waiting on. There's numerous areas.
Is it, I know we're dealing with Army Corps engineers, but is it normal to take that kind of time, I guess, for? That time or longer, yes.
I believe we worked through the Steinhatchee process for 2 years or longer. Now,
Very extended process.
it was a very extended process, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Yeah.
However, and then that was during COVID, and then there was a funding issue. So there were starts and stops to the Steinhatchee project, which is why I cannot be sure about the completion date. I should have more information this week about what their calendar looks like, or the timeline looks like.
So roughly, kind of to restate that, we as the citizens of the county of Taylor should receive the report from the Corps of Engineers roughly in December. Per your staff, it may take up to 3 months or longer to review those recommendations and then bring that forth as a resolution.
Well, the modeling is the first step. But the modeling is the most complicated part of it. Then there will be review by staff, and then they will start working on solutions. So depending on how long that phase takes, I'm really just kind of guessing as far as how long it would take to complete that. But I should know formally later this week what their timeline looks like, as long as there's no interruption or funding issues or anything of that nature.
Is there any cost to the citizens of the county for the Corps of Engineers to provide that study?
Not directly. Now, we're taxpayers. So the first part of the study was funded at $200,000, and then I believe the second part is another $200,000 of funding that they provided to us. There has not been a direct expense to Taylor County for that.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your name? I didn't get your name.
Thank you. My name is Brian Johnson,
Your address is what?
2200 East Ellison Road.
Brian Johnson.
Thank you for your
It's
time.
not the first time you had water, is it?
Actually, yes, sir. And believe me, I've owned the property since 2016. We've had multiple high rain events, and my personal property has held water for less than 2 days on any event. As of Sunday, my property was dry. Today, I'm covering close to an acre at greater depth than 6 inches. And it's because of the runoff from neighbors who actually have more of an issue than what I do. So this is water that has run onto my property. It has not come from the ground underneath. It's not come from above.
Sure,
Right.
but
You have any idea how many inches of rain you've gotten in that time frame?
We expect that since the 1st of June, and again, going back to the data that Ms. Pemberton has provided, that, we're expecting 25 inches of rain. And that was through Sunday. And again, the property is dry.
since 2016, the first time that you had water like this,
Yes.
we've had pretty good.
Once in a while.
Yeah,
You-
Well, there's a second part to this. If you don't mind, let me show everyone this piece of the puzzle. So if you look at the aquifer conditions, which we've had this before, not necessarily in this area, but we've seen this in the south end of the county.
Sure.
So the end of June, it was extremely high in in this area. So not only have we had an excessive amount of rain, and the rain we've had has been in a very short period of time. So there's really, I don't believe, an opportunity for it to even percolate. And then you have the high groundwater conditions, and the water just doesn't have anywhere to go except to the lowest spots.
For my personal property, I reject that because it has had an opportunity to percolate. We have had 3 or 4 inch rain events, and the standing water has percolated.
But
and
this
covered.
water, I believe, is coming from other areas, most likely.
That is what I submit, that this is coming from other areas, and since it is coming from other areas onto my property and my neighbor's property, eventually, based on the Corps of Engineers study, I would come forth and ask that the county make a public works project moving forward to correct the stormwater runoff for this area. I submit, I have low property on the road. I do not doubt that. I live in a pothole. And the only way to keep this from flooding, apart from a significant single day 20-inch event, is to ensure that the water has a place to go in the surrounding areas. I don't know the area. I don't know the geography. I do not have a topographical map. I cannot make a suggestion. All I see is what I observe. The water is currently running across my neighbor's yard. It's filled my basin. It's used a culvert underneath the road, that the culvert was installed actually when the road was rebuilt. And it is now flooded the opposite side of the road, where it's, I believe, inside of one house. And one of the attendees here tonight is unable to get to her house because it would be in the floorboard of her pickup truck to go to her house. I have a picture I can show you, and on a standard barbed wire fence, there's only about 5 inches of post sticking out of the ground. We are the low spot. Unless you pump it, or again, take a bucket brigade, it's not going anywhere until it percolates.
And if I may, even if it were to be pumped out to the ditch, I think it would just circle back around it would just find its way back to where it came from, is my concern.
I don't argue that point. So with that, I think that I'll yield to anybody else who wants to talk. Thank you. Any other further questions for me, please? Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Anyone else for non-objective items?
I would like to add some stuff you said about the water.
State your name and address, please.
My name is Betty Croft. I live at 2179 East Ellison Road, right across the road from this gentleman. And As of last night, the water on my property wasn't very deep. This morning, it was deep. Now, I cannot get to my place. I live way up the hill. And I was told when I built that property, it was probably one of the highest pieces of property in the county. Now, about half of it is underwater. It's not all rainwater. I stood there last night at the end of my driveway at the highway, and heard water running like a river. I walked down to the road just a little ways, and the culvert that the county people put there was pouring water onto my property and running. And my uncle's house, that right on the way up to my house, is the one that's underwater now. Everything he's got is underwater. His goats and his cows are on my property because he can't put them where they were. But anyway, to make a long story short, the water, since they put those ditches there, the new and built the road, ditches have never had water in them at my property. Never. Yeah, the low part going down my driveway, it's like that. There's been water on both sides when we had a lot of rain, but it didn't take long for it to dry up. And like the gentleman just said, Mr. Johnson, it's not going to dry up anytime soon. I don't know how I'm going to even get home to my house. I have a four-wheel drive truck. It's tore up. I have another truck. Like you said, the water would be in the floorboard. I can't get to my house. And I've got dogs, horses, and stuff that they're in the property. My husband, I just lost him in February. So I am in a quandary about it. I don't know what can be done. I don't know if anything can be done, but something, I've got to get home. And I don't know how I'm gonna get there. Unless somebody's I got two boats. One's a pontoon and one's a 14-foot Carolina skid, but I can't use either one of them because they're too big. So, I don't know what the answer is, but the problem is there's a lot of room from my house to the west, I think the west, that is dry as a bone because the water is just sitting there now in that ditch that's down like this, not going anywhere, nowhere for it to go. As they said, it's all level now. It's level with the ditch. There was never water in until this past rain, and so it's not all rainwater. It's like he said, it's water that's coming from that direction down onto my property, and it's all spilt on our property because now at the point we're all on level ground. So it's never, I knew when they were putting my husband, rest his sweet soul, he knew we were going to end up having this problem because he used to build roads. And he knew at the time that this was going to happen eventually. Well, now, bless his sweet soul, he was right. That's what's happening. And I don't know what the answer is, but it's going to take time. I don't know that I have time.
I guess the engineers looked at this and there's not even like a short-term fix to.
Not that I'm aware of. Now, if you'll recall, when the road was built, the plan was with a private landowner to construct a ditch and have to divert the water from the end of the road to where it would tie into Spring Creek, I believe. That from my understanding, over the past several years, the county has worked with two separate private landowners to try to enter into an easement agreement, and both of them have changed their mind. So originally that was the plan, was that the water would be diverted from the west side of the road on back to where it would go into Spring Creek, and that is no longer an option and hasn't been for quite some time. So there was a suggestion of another landowner, but we would have to, from what I understand, we would have to cross two private properties, and one of those landowners has already said no. They do not wish to have any type of ditch work done across their private property, and I am not aware at this time of another option.
The situation was, we were asked if we wanted the water. We got the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there since 2008, is when I bought that property.
Yes, ma'am.
Been through hurricanes, never has been an issue until now.
And the hydrology of that area is the water is going to the lowest point. There are several pop and fill type ponds where it will fill up and then it will pop off and it will flow to the next low area and fill up and flow to the next low area. So eventually it will end up in the lowest areas.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're right, it is not, all the water on your property is not from rainfall.
But if I'm
But even
understanding,
below there's no water in the ditches. I mean, the reed ditches from where my property joins up with my aunt's property, which is, she's got 2 buildings now that are underwater too. There's no water in the ditches.
Are so the ditches must be higher than the property there?
They are.
Okay.
And, it's, like I said, I
Are
mean,
you at the end of the street?
pardon me?
Are you at the end of the street?
No, sir, I'm right across the road from this gentleman here and the other gentleman that's sitting here. And all of our, it's just like a big, huge, and the water was running under the road at the culvert from his property. So now we're all on level ground, so as far as water wise. But I'm deeper because I was low to start with. And it was like that whenever it was done, and my husband asked the people when they were doing the road, that, like I said, he knew this was gonna happen sooner or later, and like I said, it's happened. But, the ditches are so steep now, the ditches are steep, where I can't even, it looks like a jungle, because now I can't even mow, which that's my least of the worries now, it's mowing. But the water, there's never been any water, never, not one day until now, has there ever been any water in the ditches. And it came from his property.
Right. Which it
I
was.
guess the question
Because of the
that I
cross
have
roads.
is, given the nature of this occurrence, is there a temporary emergency measure that we could take to alleviate or connect this transition? It sounds to me like, I'm not an engineer, but it gives me the impression that this water is transitioning, that it has transitioned from some of these areas to a low point, but that there may be a path to connect that to relieve this high volume.
So there is a way to do that.
They
Is
alleviate,
there a way?
they alleviate the problem.
She talked about it a while ago. You got landowners that don't want to do that.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess my question is not to try to get into a long-term lease situation with a landowner, but could we make an evaluation and for the short term, allow this path of least resistance to relieve this pressure so that these folks might be able to access their homes? And I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but it seems like.
The concern is, even if the water was moved into the ditch, the roadside ditch, it would eventually find its way back to the low spot, and it would just go in a circle, is my concern.
Well, it's in the ditch now. I mean, the water is in the ditch up to a point, but from there on up the roads, there's no water in their ditches.
Right, and it would be very difficult to push water uphill into the opposite end of the road.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I know we're not gonna probably solve this in this particular conversation, this would have to carry on.
And we, yeah,
But I guess the ideal is gonna be that, I mean, I understand the water kind of recirculates back to where it came from, but at the point, I guess at the fall point, I guess from that point on where all the water goes, is there like a temporary fix in order to drain all this water and just to get it out of the way? And I think you had mentioned having to have some agreements from landowners.
I mean, the one particular property owner who we worked with previously, and this was several years ago, that water ended up on another private property owner who stated that they do not wish for us to do that again. We would have to secure permission, and I'm not sure if, I will certainly go back to the engineer and the public works director and ask them if there were a state of emergency, or do we have any options?
This sounded like me, obviously not, that, look at it. Even if there's no rain for 4 months, I don't see that water would go away.
If you have that kind of inundation with the aquifer, with the volume on the ground and the aquifer charged to that level, we've experienced this in other locations, and unfortunately, it's a long-term effect. So that's why, if there is an outlet that will, and I'm not saying there is, I have no idea about the topography there, but I know that there's been issues about a long-term lease, but if there's, per the engineer and public works director, a short-term relief where that at least in this condition, we are not having to deal with, waist deep water or deeper to access homes. Even if that means that, we need to declare a state of emergency because of that level, let's do so.
I mean, I said, my uncle's definitely is his house, and he is.
Yeah, water in your house or just?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if it's not in his house, I talked to him earlier today, and it says
It's in his house,
and it's completely around his house.
and it wasn't yesterday.
I will offer that about 5:30, I took pictures of her uncle's home, and I did email that to Ms. Pennington. So if she has an opportunity to pull her email up, she can show you that home and all of our properties on that screen.
I can't get home tonight, I'm gonna have to find both. I can't swim.
And that's with no rain continuing. That's water that has built all day long while she was working, flowing to her, because it's flowing across our property at a high rate.
We're the property,
And
we're
it's
the ones that are
moving
feeding.
toward her and him, but ours is completely flooded. Every bit of ours is. It's under the house and moving onto them.
We probably have 12 acres underwater currently, just between the two of us. And the
I can't
issue
get into
is,
mine either.
yeah, the grandkids are having to use a boat, but the issue is that the ditches from the end of the road are coming through the culvert system to a small watering hole, pond, whatever you want to call it, next to us.
Private property.
On private property, so it's flooding private property, comes behind our house, flows like a river through my property. My husband has videos that his Ford can't now get to. Flows to our pond, which is now overflown under my parents' house, across the neighbors to the Johnsons, through the culvert to to the side to Mr. Turner, over to Miss Betty, totally across the road.
Which hasn't happened. in
But
the
you have
30 years.
neighbors down the road who 5 years ago were flooded that now are dry. So there are people who benefited from the road, but frankly, the money that was put in that new road and ditch system would have way more benefited us to fix this flooding problem that we've been dealing with for 10 years. And I've lived in that neighborhood for going on 40 years. Grew up out there, built a home out there, raised my children out there. And water is not in my house, but it is encroaching on mine, and I am high.
I've been living there since 1968, and I helped build that road going in there, and those low spots that you're talking about was where they pushed most of that dirt up to build that road bed.
I knew that.
And,
I used to dirt on my property.
That water has never, I'm 77 years old, I've been there since 1968. And I've never seen water stand like it is today. And I know we've had high aquifer, I know we've had low, but I've never seen that much water come downhill, run west from the east out of the bay till they get that road.
The water coming out of the bay? I'm sorry? The water coming out of the bay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir, there's fish jumping, it's coming out of the bay.
It's coming out of the bay, coming down these new ditches that the county put in, filling up this low spot in front of Mr. Red and Sue Paget's old house, running across behind her house into Dick's place, across Mr. Lance Martin's place, into Johnson's place, in the mine through the culvert they put into yours. And I don't know, if it keeps raining in the bay, I don't know how high it'll get, because it can't reach Spring Creek going that way.
Going the
And
wrong
there's
way.
But if-
days of flow
if they-
coming.
If they did what they were gonna do years ago, on the east side, before it got to Ellison Road, cut that ditch to Spring Creek,
Yep.
all that water would have left the bay and went to Spring Creek where it
Right.
needs to go.
We can hold our rainwater, but we can't hold bay water.
That's exactly right.
And that's what the county has attempted, from my understanding, to negotiate with two separate private landowners.
How far back was that, if I could ask?
Well, one of them was just, I believe, last year. And then the other one, I was not here, so I'm not familiar with that
I know
one.
we've been here before with this whole discussion with one of the landowners you're talking about. And then the other landowner who did let it drain to them temporarily to try to give relief, which is the only thing that kept it from going to all these people. It came to us. You've been to ours before when we've been underwater. But it kept it, that alleviation kept it from getting on down.
Well, I've
My
never
husband
seen-
said
I've never
then-
seen water in there behind your house like it is now.
Oh, no.
Never. So,
But I believe last year, I think there were some, or year before, there were some ditch blocks put in to try to slow the flow down to behind your place.
Before the roads were paved.
Before the roads.
Right, and that was maneuvered by a neighbor on down repeatedly, so,
Who is now dry.
and they're dry,
they're high
so.
and dry on that side, so I don't,
And they were flooded before any of us would be flooded, that would be flooded, but they're not flooded now. So there's obviously something with the new ditch system that helped that, but made a huge problem for people who never saw it. We did get it, we would get it. It never went to these people, ever. But my husband told
But
them it would go that way. If it got enough water, it was gonna go on down, and it was gonna affect other people down. We would not be the only ones. Well, now here we are. They are getting it now.
in 1964, it was like it is now. So it didn't last long. And I think Dick was a little boy back then, there used to be a house there, they used to dip fish out of the septic tank, there were so many fish coming out of the bay, and all that water came out of the bay, but there was no culverts in the road, because it was a dirt road back then. But I moved out there in '68, and, I worked with Water Company out there over that road, and, I've never seen this kind of water, never. And I fly an airplane, I flew today looking around trying to see where this water's come from. And what I see from the air, just what you see up there, you see all that water coming out of the bay, and it's running downhill, and it's filling up all these little low spots. Now, what's happening, they tapped into that low spot, the last one there by Red Patch's place, and it's running into this new ditch that we built on the roadway, and it's putting all that water in her place. But it's coming through Dick,
Passing us first.
Brian's, and everybody, till it gets to the brand new culvert they put in front of my house. And it runs right to her house. You saw it today.
There was not a cross drain there previously?
Yes,
Okay.
always has been.
Okay.
But I've never seen water run through it, never.
I don't know if all of the cross drains were functioning previously?
Yes, it was.
Was it?
It was.
Okay.
But to her point, if interventions had not been made in years past, they probably would have seen water before. Now, this time, nothing's been done, so it's just flowing as it, but it's also more water, and the ditches are moving
I've
it.
got an asphalt driveway there. It's so deep, my wife can't drive her car out hardly. I mean, it was pretty close. I lay by in the morning, and it'd probably, I might drive my truck out. Brian's house is underwater already, and it was dry, and but it keeps rising because it's coming out of the bay, and it will, if we get any more rain, it'll do the same thing. Now, what are we gonna do? I don't know. I'm not an engineer, I'm a pilot, but what I'm saying, you can look at the map, or I could, and figure out where to cross a ditch somewhere on somebody's property to put it in Spring Creek before it gets this far.
Right, which is what we have attempted twice, and permission was withdrawn. And landowners have the right to do that.
If it's my property and I don't wanna give you the land, if it's messing up 15 people down the road, there's ways to take it.
That's right.
And I
And
wouldn't,
we've spoken with those landowners too, and they were willing, and they wanted it buried. They didn't want to just have a ditch running the water
They
through
want it
their,
done properly.
because they hunt the area too. They didn't want water running, they wanted a pipe buried to carry the water.
see Spring Creek, I looked at it today from the air, it's got lots of water in it, but it's not capturing the water from the north, crossing over the power line, to get in Spring Creek. It's just taking what falls on the power line and south of the power line and running down Spring Creek. But it could handle everything that we have if you could get it to it. And it wouldn't take a whole lot to do that.
Right.
So can we look, probably with get with the engineer and see what options, even if it means, get with the major landowners that maybe it's coming from, these two landowners, if they could, if there's a way that, if the water's coming from,
It need to be diverted.
the water's coming from somewhere. so-
It's coming out of the bay, we know where it's coming from. It's easily.
Is there a different outlet than where it's going?
And that was the,
You know, Michael, we've flown that a lot of times, you know that main bay.
This is diverted before it ever got through that cross drain.
You don't think you think it's making its way out of the canal to your area?
It's doing what now?
Is it making its way out of the canal to that area?
I didn't fly far enough to look at that today, but it looks like it's coming out of the canal and filling up all the low spots till it's got them all full, and of course they've gotta go somewhere. They coming downhill, they catch in this ditch, and they come into her place throughout.
So instead of it making its way south, it's
It
making
can't make its way
its way.
south without a ditch. It can't make its way south. Because it can't cross over the right of way for that big main power line to get into Spring Creek. It'll fill up all those little tributaries, and it's doing that now. But we just got more rainfall, and if it was just rainfall, it would absorb it. But what we've got now is this big tub of water up there in the bay just keeps spilling over, and it's putting all that water downhill. Now, once it balances out, if her place gets to where it's in her house probably, and this level of the bay, it'll all be, you won't see any movement, but we're all flooded. I've never had water from the highway halfway to my house, and I'm on a hill. But my asphalt road, you can't hardly drive out of it.
I'm on a hill too, but the hill is up there.
Right.
And I can't get to the.
Mine is backwards, mine is in the back, I can get,
Okay, yours is high right there, but
I'm
you got
high.
water on your back of your house. I've never seen it up that close to your house.
it's extremely narrow.
Never.
But anyway, you've seen what we're talking about. You've been going there a lot of times, but anyway.
It just seems like, to me, that, number one, looking at how supercharged with water the area is, it's not gonna be a short term.
But Mike, let's look at this. I've been there how long? Since '68? Is this the only time the aqua's been full? No.
No, sir, I wouldn't think, no, I can tell you, no, I know, several years ago, I mean,
And
I won't say this time last year, but let's just say there's been a number of occurrences
We've
where
had lots of rain since 1968. And it's never flooded any of these people out. Never flooded me out. And I know it's never flooded anybody. I have seen it flood Merritt on the other side, on the south side. But just for a day or two and it's on way. But
But
if it
remember-
stay there like it is now, never.
But remember I believe it was last year, we did have a way to divert that water,
Right.
and that's gone now.
Yeah.
So,
That ditch that y'all dug across that property, we didn't look out our last year, where they went in there and dug that
It
ditch,
did all.
all the water left his property, so now we don't have that.
we do not. So,
So that's why it's on down on us.
The bay's full, but still there's ways for the bay to alleviate itself if we can get it to Spring Creek, go down and it come out over about
It's
the
gotta be diverted before it comes to that cross drain to the property owner, to Jared Hunt's property.
which is what we did last year.
Last year ago. We haven't diverted in quite a while because our home has flooded a couple times
2 years ago?
and not been diverted.
I
Yeah,
think it was
it's been a while.
I think it was, yeah, I think it's been it's been 5 years, I think.
Yeah, I emailed, but I didn't get a response.
But anyway,
No, excuse me, Katie, it's been less than 5 years ago that we were looking,
I think
working.
it was 18. It was before we came back, and I had him in 2020. It was before.
It's been a while.
It was.
Quite a while.
It wasn't last year, but we have had this.
something.
Not last year.
so we understand we have a problem. I mean, there is a problem with water, so I don't think we know what to do at this given moment. But.
Well, when we leave here tonight, what can we leave
Yeah,
here?
I'd just like to ask maybe staff to get with their engineer, even if it means to get with these, let's push these landowners to try to help us. Even a short-term fix to get rid of this water for now, so, and, that way, maybe there could be a long-term solution going forward to alleviate the problem that's, obviously it's just popped up in the last few years, so, if we could maybe get with our engineer to see what the problem is, and we obviously know where it's coming from, but if there's some kind of short-term solution to get rid of this water, like I said, I don't know if there is an answer, but.
Well, if we could just stop it from coming out the bay somewhere, divert it somewhere else, it'll dry up in a day or two probably. It'll soak away. But the amount of water's coming now across Jarvis's and Lance Mark's property, it'll never stop. That's just, pretty soon it'll have.
And it's flowing for days.
We
It's
have
not
days.
done. It is running like a
It'll have
river
an hour of
today,
flowing.
this evening, when I left. In four-wheel drive.
But you've gotta stop it at the end, it's gotta not, because if you try to stop it where that crosses under the road, you're just gonna flood the other
Right.
neighbors on
Yeah,
the
you
other
can't
side.
do that.
So you've gotta catch it at the very end, and,
At the very beginning, yeah. If you stop it at my cover, we're going on the road, it'll help her.
but it's
Well,
just
it'll-
gonna back up on everybody else.
Let's let staff look at it and see what, and maybe our engineer get together and look at it and see what they can do, or what can be done, what direction.
And not only pull our staff, Swanee River Management has.
Spring Creek, if you.
We've had Swanee River Management
I've
out
looked
there,
at it.
yes, sir, last year.
They got us out there probably 2 years ago to look at that area.
I just say, there's a way that we can find a short-term, a temporary fix. And so
My concern is my mom is 72 years old. If she were to have a heart attack tonight and need a first responder, they would not be able to get to her. And precious moments would be lost because when they get there and they see they can't get to her, then they've got to go back and get another vehicle from the jail or wherever they keep it to where they can get in there to her.
You can't even access her from a neighbor's property.
in the fire chief,
I'll alert
Says-
dispatch tonight.
area,
Yeah, I'll alert dispatch that.
That's not a long-term fix, but at
Properties
least
on East Ellison.
we'll have an evaluation. So
We
we-
just got to figure out how to
get in there.
She don't get home. Even if she gets in tonight and the water rises overnight, it's gonna be higher than it is, it'll probably be over the fence post by in the morning. She won't be able to get out, so she doesn't have ingress and egress out into her property.
I have to work in order to keep my place. I have a order, I have to pay. Anyway.
Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we can find a short-term solution to alleviate the water in the area.
May I make one additional request, please? And thank you very much for your time. You've been very attentive to everyone who's spoken. Appreciate your professionalism. If there's going to be an assessment by staff, I would ask that the Office of the Administrator and the staff at least write a memo or a letter to leave in each of our mailboxes of what was reviewed and what are the next steps. At least communicate to the property owners of what action is being considered. Keep us informed. That is my final ask. Thank you.
There's not that many of us on that street. Thank you. All right, any more comments or concerns for non-agenda items? All right. We'll move on to board informational items.
Hey, looks like you got a lot of water, got a lot of property. Maybe we need to be looking and seeing what's out there. If there's anyone calls with the phone, say they got a problem, let's report it to the administrator and see, give them a different help. If it's no more than moving them out or helping them get out.
No, sir, I don't have anything else. Look forward to some sort of temporary solution.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming and listening to their concerns, and hopefully we can find at least a short-term solution for now, until, something long-term can be done. So, thank you all for coming. And that's all I have. So, what I hear.
So move.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Start from like it's not a kid.